Now, to translate to something that the rest of the Steelers nation and the reporters have been talking about, that more and more I'm thinking about, I might have bit into this false narrative as well. The Kendrick Green story rather is interesting. It's a big guy playing fullback. I really think as we dive into this deeper, this is the Steelers throwing him a bone to try to make the roster. Because as I look at the way the roster development is here, and we see in here, they're giving him legit chance, handing the ball off from Kenny, and all the other prior things we've seen with Kendrick Green doing fullback drills, etc. The simple reality is that the Steelers have a ton of depth up and down their roster. And if we're going to be trying to dress McFarland on game day, that means there's only 7 offensive linemen. So if you're looking at saying, normally on game day, you have your 5 starters, obviously, a backup center, backup guard, and a swing tackle. Fair enough. But when you look at the Steelers and who their personnel is, both of their starting guards have center experience. Herbig, who we brought in from the Jets, has center experience. And then obviously your center does. So do we need to dress 5 centers on game day? And that's a big hard no. So as we look at this from that light, saying if he's not going to be getting a hat on game day, and we're comfortable going in with seven actively dressed linemen, there's not a spot for him on the roster. There's not a need for it. This is a way the Steelers can steal a roster spot and give it to one of their skilled rooms, particularly for McFarland to dress if he's not doing any special teams action. So that's a very long way of saying I don't think Kendrick Green's making this team. And that all of this hoopla, and I apologize for falling victim to it earlier, I think it's irrelevant. I think that this is going to be this year's version of what the Steelers do to get people excited that ends up meaning nothing. And I think there's a very good chance of that. Because as we look at the other person from this draft class that has been ignored from the entire time, the tackle we took in the 7th round has literally taken a practice rep at every single offensive line position. He's also, because he's a 7th rounder, totally capable of sliding onto your practice squad. So if you have a situation where one of your starters get hurt and someone else signs Kendrick Green, the Steelers would be comfortable having Spencer be the promotion from the practice squad to being that extra depth piece on the offensive line for game day. I really think that that's the direction. I think Kendrick Green lost his job realistically when we signed Herbig, but certainly when we signed Samala. And now the fact that we're getting so much versatility out of a 7th rounder, it's just accelerating the end for him. And he's just trying to do whatever he can to make the roster and hit it at fullback. And this goes back to the actual fact of when we're dressing people on game day. You're not going to pass on Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward is capable of doing essentially every single thing that Kendrick Green is. So is Washington, and so is Gentry. There's a certain point where I'm very glad the Steelers have gotten big and massive, but there's a certain point you can't overload the same skill set over and over again. And I think that Kendrick Green just unfortunately is on the outside looking in. I'm very excited both for week 1 and the home opener against San Francisco, but also for this game on Friday against Tampa Bay for the first preseason game. Because the Steelers have been putting in tremendous work. Even when practice is over and they're doing things like Minka is doing right here, of just testing his eyes. It may seem small, but the fact that the Steelers are being constantly competitive and dressing in pads, sharpening iron, and pushing themselves, the most important transferable skills of this team are showing up. Physicality, pass rush, ball placement. The Steelers are an absolutely fantastic place. So here we go, Steelers. Here we go.